The plasma round seared past Commander Vilya Torox's head, close enough to singe the air around her helmet. She rolled behind a twisted beam of hull plating, her pulse rifle already charging for another shot. Torox to all units, she barked. Into her calm, the hegemony bastards are dug in deeper than we thought. Prepare for extended engagement. Across the shattered remains of what had once been the civilian transport Mercy's Hope, 47 human Marines crouched behind improvised cover. They'd been tracking the Velkari raiding fleet for 3 weeks, ever since the aliens had struck the outer colony worlds. The attack hadn't been random, it had been calculated, surgical, designed to send a message. The message had been clear. Humans were prey. Through her scope, Torox could see the enemy positions. Velkari warriors, there. Chitinous exoskeletons gleaming under the harsh lights of the derelict ship's emergency systems. They moved with predatory grace. 6-limbed creatures that had evolved from something resembling Earth's mantis shrimp, but scaled up to the size of grizzly bears and equipped with technology that made them apex predators across 17-star systems. Commander, her lieutenant, Marcos Fenwick, crawled up beside her. We've got a problem. The Velkari aren't just holding position, they're broadcasting. Torox's blood went cold. Broadcasting what? You need to hear this. Fenwick handed her a translation unit. The mechanical voice that emerged spoke in heavily accented standard galactic. Human scavengers, you cling to the corpses of your dead, like carrion feeders. Your honor is a joke told by a species too weak to take what it wants. I am Warlord Kesethel, Blade of the Crimson Void, and I have claimed 17 worlds in the name of the Velkari hegemony. Your colonies burn because you are soft. Your children weep because you are weak. Your warriors hide behind cover because you have no courage. The voice paused, and Torox could hear the click of mandibles, the Velkari equivalent of laughter. I challenge your strongest warrior to single combat. When I tear them apart, I will broadcast their death across your pathetic colonies. Then, perhaps, you will understand that humans are fit only to serve or to die. The transmission cut out. Torox felt something cold and familiar settle in her chest. It was the same feeling she'd had on Kepler for Fortubi, when the Velkari had massacred the research station. The same feeling when she'd found the mass graves on Titan's Promise, bodies arranged in ritualistic patterns. The same feeling when she'd held the dying child on New Harvest, a girl who'd asked why the bug monsters had killed her parents. Commander, Fenwick's voice seemed to come from far away. Orders around them. The other Marines were listening, their faces hard behind their visors. Torox knew what they were thinking. They'd all lost friends, family, entire worlds to the Velkari expansion. The aliens had been pushing into human space for 2 years, and every diplomatic attempt had been met with contempt. The Velkari didn't just want territory. They wanted submission. Patch me through to Kesethel, Torox said, quietly. Ma'am, you can't seriously be considering. Patch me through. The connection crackled to life. Warlord, Torox said, her voice carrying across the twisted wreckage. I am Commander Vilya Torox of the Terran Colonial Marines. I accept your challenge. The clicking laughter came again. A human female. How quaint. Your species sends its weakest to die first. Meet me in the cargo bay. Alone. No weapons but what evolution gave us. Your evolution gave you nothing but soft flesh and brittle bones. I have for arms, natural armor, and reflexes that can catch your bullets. This will be brief, then you won't mind if I make it interesting. Torox replied, when I kill you, I want your entire fleet to watch. I want them to see what human honor really looks like. For the first time, there was silence from the Velkari position. Broadcast it. Torox continued, let the whole galaxy see what happens. When someone mocks human honor, the silence stretched. Then, agreed, in 1 hour, we meet. Your death will be educational. Torox cut the connection and looked at her Marines. They were staring at her with a mixture of horror and admiration. Ma'am, Fenwick said carefully, Kesethel is 7 feet tall, has 4 arms, and claws that can shred titanium. He's killed 300 warriors in single combat. Torox checked her sidearm, then set it aside. She began stripping off her armor, piece by piece. Then it's time someone taught him what human honor really means, she said, and why we don't just survive, we thrive. The cargo bay of the Mercy's Hope had been cleared, its scattered containers pushed aside to create an arena roughly 30 meters across. Emergency lighting cast harsh shadows across the corrugated metal walls, and the smell of ozone and blood hung in the recycled air. Commander Torox stood at one end of the makeshift ring, stripped down to her combat bodysuit. Across from her, Warlord HFY loomed like a nightmare given form. The Valkyrie was everything Fenwick had warned her about, and worse 7 feet of chitinous armor. For arms ending in talons that could punch through steel, and compound eyes that tracked her every movement with predatory focus. Last chance to withdraw, human. HFY's voice resonated through the bay. His mandibles clicked in amusement. I have studied your species. You are slow, fragile, and rely on tools because your bodies are useless. Without your weapons, you are nothing. You talk a lot for someone who hasn't started fighting yet, Torox replied, rolling her shoulders. Around the edges of the cargo bay, both human and Valkyrie forces had gathered. The Marines looked tense, hands resting on weapons they couldn't use. The Valkyrie warriors stood motionless, but their antenna-like sensory organs twitched with anticipation. HFY's transmitter crackled to life. Warriors of the hegemony, observe as I demonstrate the weakness of human flesh. Let this be a lesson to all who would challenge the Valkyrie. The warlords for arms spread wide, displaying his natural weapons. His primary arms ended in claws, designed for tearing through armor. His secondary arms were more slender, built for precision strikes. His entire body moved with the fluid grace of a born killer. Begin, he hissed. HFY exploded forward with inhuman speed. His primary claw swept toward Torox's head in a killing blow. That would have decapitated a lesser opponent. But Torox wasn't there anymore. She dropped and rolled, coming up inside his guard. The Valkyrie's confidence wavered for just a moment as Torox's elbow slammed into the joint. Where his primary arm met his thorax, the impact sent shockwaves through his carapace, and he staggered backward. Impossible, he snarled. Your kind lacks the speed. Torox's knee found the gap in his armor, just below what passed for his ribs. The warlord doubled over, as she brought her clasped hands down on the back of his head. The blow would have killed a human, but the Valkyrie's natural armor absorbed most of the impact. Still, HFY stumbled. You want to know about human evolution? Torox circled him, staying just out of reach of his claws. We didn't evolve on a nice, peaceful world. We evolved on a planet that was actively trying to kill us. Every predator, every disaster, every disease, we survived it all. HFY lunged again, this time leading with all four arms in a coordinated attack. Torox couldn't dodge them all. His secondary claw raked across her shoulder, drawing blood and tearing through her bodysuit. But even as she took the hit, she was moving, grabbing his extended arm and using his own momentum against him. The Valkyrie crashed into the cargo bay wall with enough force to dent the metal. He recovered quickly, but Torox was already positioning herself for another attack. We learned to hunt in packs, she continued, dodging another swipe. We learned to use tools. We learned to think our way out of problems. But most importantly, we learned to never give up. The warlord's compound eyes tracked her movement, and she could see calculation behind the alien intelligence. He was beginning to understand that this wasn't going to be the easy kill he'd expected. You speak of tools, he said, his voice now carrying a note of respect. Yet you face me with none. Wrong. Torox smiled grimly. I'm using the best tool humanity ever developed. She feinted left, then drove her right fist into his solar plexus with every ounce of strength she possessed. The blow should have broken her hand against his armor, but instead, HFY's exoskeleton cracked. The warlord's eyes widened in shock. How my brain? Torox finished. I've been studying your species for 2 years. I know exactly where your armor is weakest. I know how your joints articulate. I know that your confidence makes you predictable. She demonstrated by landing 3 more precision strikes in quick succession, one to his secondary elbow joint, one to the nerve cluster at the base of his neck, and one to the sensory organ cluster just above his compound eyes. HFY staggered, his movements becoming uncoordinated. Green fluid, the Valkyrie equivalent of blood, leaked from several joints in his armor. This is impossible, he gasped. You are just human. Torox stepped back, breathing hard but still in control. Around them, the watching Valkyrie warriors shifted uneasily. Their supposedly invincible warlord was being systematically dismantled by a creature they considered prey. Just human, Torox repeated. You know what that means? It means I'm the descendant of apex predators. It means my ancestors survived ice ages, supervolcanoes, and extinction events. It means I come from a species that looked at the stars and decided to claim them. She moved forward again, and this time Kestel actually backed away. It means, she continued, that when you mock human honor, you're not just insulting me. You're insulting every human who ever lived, who ever died, who ever sacrificed everything to protect what they loved. The Warlord's mandibles clicked frantically. Wait, I yield. I acknowledge your strength. This combat is over when one of us is dead. Torox finished. Those were your rules, remember. She could see the fear in his compound eyes now. The realization that he'd made a terrible mistake. You wanted to broadcast this, she said. You wanted the galaxy to see what happens when someone challenges human honor. Well, here's your lesson. Kessel's arms moved in perfect coordination, desperation lending him speed and strength. His claws whistled through the air in patterns that would have reduced the lesser opponent to ribbons. But Torox had found her rhythm now. She moved, like liquid death, flowing around his attacks and countering with surgical precision. The watching Velkari warriors began to click their mandibles in distress. Their warlord, the undefeated champion of 17 worlds, was being systematically dismantled by a single human female. It was impossible. It was unthinkable that it was happening. You cannot defeat me, Kestel roared, his voice cracking with strain. I am the blade of the crimson void. I have killed thousands. Torox ducked under his primary claw, pivoted, and drove her knee into his thorax again. This time, she heard something crack inside his armor, and I'm the woman who's going to kill you. The warlord stumbled backward, green ichor streaming from the gaps in his carapace. His secondary arms hung limply at his sides. Torox had systematically disabled the nerve clusters controlling them. He was operating at half strength now, but desperation made him dangerous. You want to know about human honor? Torox's voice, carried across the cargo bay, amplified by the Velkari's own broadcasting equipment. It's not about being the strongest. It's not about being the fastest. It's about never backing down when something you love is threatened. She gestured to her Marines, who stood watching in tense silence. These men and women followed me into hell because they know what honor means. They know that sometimes you have to stand between the monsters and the innocent, even when you're outgunned and outnumbered. Kestel charged again, but his movements were sluggish now. Torox sidestepped and grabbed his primary arm, using the joint lock she learned from studying Velkari anatomy. The warlord screamed as his own chitinous armor became a prison. You attacked our colonies. She continued, applying pressure. You killed our children. You told us we were weak, that we were prey. But here's what you never understood about humans. She twisted, and Kestel's arm snapped with a sound like breaking glass. We don't just survive. We adapt. We learn. We get stronger. The warlord collapsed to one knee, his breathing ragged, around the cargo bay. The Velkari warriors were backing away from the ring. Several had their weapons drawn, but they couldn't interfere without breaking their own sacred combat laws. Please. Kestel gasped. I was wrong. Your species, I underestimated. You did more than underestimate us, Torox said quietly. You committed genocide. You burned worlds. You destroyed families. You mocked the memory of everyone who died trying to protect what they loved. She grabbed his remaining functional arm and pulled him to his feet. The warlord was nearly twice her size, but he moved like a broken marionette. You want to know what human honor really looked like? She asked. It looks like making sure monsters like you never hurt anyone again. Kestel's compound eyes fixed on hers, and for a moment, she saw something that might have been understanding, or maybe it was just fear. Your people, he whispered. They will come for you. The hegemony will not. Let them come. Torox interrupted. We'll be ready. She could see the exact moment when he realized she was going to kill him. The moment when his alien mind finally grasped that this wasn't just about single combat. It was about justice, about consequences, about the price of mocking human honor. You cannot, he said, his voice barely a whisper. I am Kestel. I am the blade of the crimson void. I am dead. Torox finished. Her hands moved with trained precision, finding the nerve cluster at the base of his skull. The Velkari nervous system was different from human, but the principle was the same. Apply pressure in the right spot, and even the most armored predator would fall. Kestel's eyes went wide. Then they went dark. The warlord's massive body hit the deck with a sound like thunder. Around the cargo bay, absolute silence fell. The Velkari warriors stared at their fallen leader in shock and disbelief. Commander Torox stood over the body, breathing hard, but victorious. Blood ran from the wounds on her shoulder and arm, but she was alive. She was standing. She had won. "Attention, warriors of the hegemony," she said, her voice carrying across the bay. "Your warlord is dead. His challenge has been answered. His arrogance has been punished." She looked directly at the nearest Velkari warrior, her eyes burning with cold fire. "You came to our space because you thought humans were weak. You attacked our colonies because you thought we were prey. You killed our children because you thought we couldn't stop you." The alien warrior's mandibles clicked nervously. "You were wrong," Torox continued. "And now you're going to carry a message back to your hegemony. You're going to tell them that human honor isn't a joke. It's a promise. A promise that when you hurt our people, we will find you. We will hunt you, and we will make you pay." She kicked Kessel's body, sending it sliding across the deck. "Take your dead warlord home," she said. "Let the hegemony see what happens when someone mocks human honor. Let them see what we do to monsters who prey on the innocent." The Velkari warriors exchanged glances, their confidence shattered. Their invincible warlord lay dead at the feet of a single human female. Everything they believed about human weakness had been proven wrong in the most brutal way possible. But as Torox watched them gathering their leader's body, she knew this was just the beginning. The Velkari hegemony would not let this insult stand. They would come with fleets, with armies, with weapons that could crack planets, and when they did, she would be ready. 3 months after the death of Kessel, the Velkari response came. With the fury of a dying star, Admiral Garrett Nix stood on the bridge of the Retribution, watching the tactical display with the cold calculation of a predator. The enemy fleet stretched across the void like a plague of metal locusts for 100 ships, ranging from nimble interceptors to massive dreadnoughts that could glass a planet's surface in minutes. "Sensor reading confirms it," Admiral reported. His tactical officer, Lieutenant Commander Yuki Sato, the entire 3rd Hegemony fleet. "They're broadcasting on all frequencies. Let's hear it," Nick said. The voice that filled the bridge was different from Kessel's older, more measured, but carrying an undercurrent of barely contained rage. "Humans of the Terran Colonial Navy, I am Supreme Warlord Vexenari, chosen of the Crimson Throne. You have murdered my brother in violation of all civilized law. Your commander Torox has committed an act of war against the hegemony." Nick smiled. Grimly, Torox was defending our space against raiders. "If that's an act of war, then we're already at war." The alien voice continued. "You will surrender the murderer Torox to face justice. You will withdraw from all contested systems. You will pay tribute equal to the value of 17 worlds. You have 1 hour to comply, or we will demonstrate why the hegemony has conquered 4 to 7 star systems." "Admiral," Sato said quietly, "they're deploying battle formations. Whatever we're going to do, we need to decide now." Nix looked at the tactical display. The human fleet was badly outnumbered 60 ships against 400 by any rational calculation. They were about to be annihilated, but rational calculations had never been humanity's strength. "Open a channel to all ships," he ordered. "This is Admiral Nix. 3 months ago, Commander Torox showed the galaxy what human honor looked like. Today, we're going to show them what human ingenuity looks like." He paused, letting his words sink in. "The Velkari think they're fighting the same species that retreated from their first push into our space. They're wrong. We've been studying their technology, their tactics, their psychology. We know how they think, how they fight, how they die." On the display, the enemy fleet was accelerating toward the outer perimeter of the system. Their formation was perfect classical Velkari battle wedge, designed to concentrate maximum firepower on a single point. "Initiate Protocol Ragnarok," Nix ordered. Across the human fleet, ships began to change. What had appeared to be standard warships revealed their true nature. As massive sections of hull plating fell away, the destroyer Vengeance split apart like a flower, revealing the antimatter torpedo it had been built around. The cruiser Defiance jettisoned its entire superstructure, exposing banks of magnetic accelerators that could punch holes through a moon. "What in the void?" Vexenaria's voice cut across the comm channels. "Surprise," Nick said. "You see, we've been preparing for this moment ever since your brother started his little genocide campaign. Every ship in this fleet was designed for one purpose: killing Velkari." The first salvo from the human fleet lit up the void. Antimatter torpedoes streaked toward the enemy formation. At a significant fraction of light speed, magnetic accelerators hurled projectiles with the kinetic energy of small asteroids. Plasma lances carved through space like the fingers of an angry god. The Valkyrie formation scattered, their perfect wedge dissolving into chaos as they realized they were facing weapons they'd never seen before, but they were seasoned warriors, and they adapted quickly. All ships, concentrate fire on the human flagship, Vexenari ordered. Show them the price of defying the hegemony. The response was immediate and devastating. 400 ships opened fire simultaneously, their weapons creating a storm of destruction that would have vaporized a planet. The retribution disappeared in a ball of superheated plasma, but when the fire cleared, the ship was still there, battered, burning, but intact. Impossible, Vexenari breathed. Ablative armor, Nyx explained, his voice carrying across the battle. We studied the debris from every Valkyrie raid. We know exactly what your weapons can do, and we design our defenses accordingly. The human fleet pressed forward, their modified ships unleashing destruction on a scale that defied comprehension. The Vengeance detonated its antimatter core in the heart of the enemy formation, taking 17 Valkyrie ships with it in a miniature supernova. The Defiance crippled 3 heavy cruisers with a single sustained burst from its magnetic accelerators. But the Valkyrie weren't helpless. Their weapons found targets and human ships began to die. The frigate Courage broke apart under concentrated fire, its crew of 200 lost in an instant. The destroyer Valor took a direct hit from a plasma lance and simply ceased to exist. They're dying, Sara reported, her voice tight with strain. We're losing ships faster than they are. I know, Nyx replied, but look at the casualty ratios. Look at how they're moving. They're scared. On the tactical display, the Valkyrie fleet was indeed moving differently. Their formations were becoming more defensive, more cautious. They'd expected to face inferior opponents, but instead they were fighting an enemy that had been specifically designed to kill them. Admiral, the communications officer called out, we're receiving a transmission from Vexenari. He's requesting terms for surrender. Nyx's smile was cold as winter. Patch him through. Human Admiral, the Valkyrie Warlord's voice was strained. Your weapons, your tactics, they are not what we expected. Perhaps we can reach an accommodation. Really? Nyx asked. Because 3 months ago, your brother said humans were weak, said we were prey, said our honor was a joke. Now you want to negotiate. My brother was overzealous. The hegemony did not intend. The hegemony intended genocide. Nyx interrupted. You burned our worlds. You killed our children. You mocked our honor. And now you want mercy. The silence stretched across the void. Here's my counteroffer, Nyx continued. Withdraw from all human space. Pay reparations for the worlds you've destroyed. Hand over every war criminal in your fleet for trial. And maybe we'll let you live. You cannot be serious. We still outnumber you 3 to 1. Do we? Nyx asked. Computer, display current casualty figures. The numbers appear on the tactical screen. 183 Valkyrie ships destroyed or disabled. 29 human ships lost. You came here expecting to fight the same species that retreated from your first invasion. Nyx said, but we're not the same species anymore. We're the species that learn from defeat. We're the species that turn our pain into purpose. We're the species that doesn't just survive, we evolve. Another salvo from the human fleet punched through the Valkyrie lines, and 6 more enemy ships vanished in balls of fire. Last chance, Nyx said, surrender now, or we'll show you what human honor really looks like when it's backed by human ingenuity. Supreme Warlord Vexenari's response came in the form of a battle cry that echoed across the void. For the Crimson Throne, for the honor of the hegemony, all ships, attack pattern Severeth. Show these humans the true meaning of war. The remaining Valkyrie fleet, still numbering over 200 ships, surged forward in a coordinated assault that transformed the battlefield into a vision of mechanized hell. Their weapons carved through space in patterns of death, seeking to overwhelm the human defenses through sheer volume of fire. Admiral Nyx watched the enemy advance with the cold satisfaction of a trap about to spring. All ships, implement Torok's maneuver. Let's show them what their dead warlord taught us about honor. The human fleet suddenly scattered, their formation dissolving into what appeared to be chaotic flight. Individual ships peeled away from the main body, each one heading in a different direction as if fleeing the overwhelming enemy force. They run. Vexenari's voice crowed over the calm channels, like all prey. They run when confronted by true predators. But the Valkyrie's triumph was short-lived. As their ships pursued the fleeing humans, they found themselves drawn into a carefully orchestrated web of destruction. The human vessels weren't fleeing, they were positioning themselves. The cruiser Indomitable suddenly reversed course, its main guns blazing. The destroyer Relentless emerged from behind a drifting asteroid, its torpedo tubes already loaded and firing. The frigate Dauntless dropped its stealth field and unleashed a barrage of magnetic accelerator rounds that punched through the hull of a Valkyrie heavy cruiser. Ambush, Vexenari snarled. They're using our own pursuit instincts against us. The battle exploded into chaos as the two fleets interpenetrated, ships weaving between each other in a deadly dance of thrust and counter-thrust. At this range, the sophisticated weapons of modern warfare gave way to the brutal reality of close-quarters combat. The human destroyer Fierce ran the Valkyrie cruiser, its reinforced prow punching through the alien ship's hull. Both vessels exploded in a ball of fire that claimed 800 lives in the space of a heartbeat. The Valkyrie battleship Crimson Fang caught the human frigate Stalwart in a crossfire between its primary guns, tearing the smaller ship apart. In seconds, Admiral, Lieutenant Commander Sato's voice was tight with strain. The Retribution is taking heavy damage. Hull breaches on decks 7 through 12. We've lost main power to the port weapons array. Nix felt the deck shudder beneath his feet as another Valkyrie salvo found its mark. Through the viewports, he could see the Retribution's escort ships dying around them. The destroyer Vigilant was listing badly, atmosphere streaming from its ruptured hull. The cruiser Thunderbolt was fighting with only half its weapons operational. But the Valkyrie were paying for every human life with 10 of their own. Sir, the tactical officer called out, the Vengeance is making another ramming run. Captain Morrison is requesting permission to. Denied. Nix cut him off. We need every ship we have left. On the main screen, the modified destroyer Vengeance was streaking toward the Valkyrie flagship. Its antimatter core already beginning to destabilize. Captain Morrison's voice crackled over the comm. Admiral, this is our chance. If we can take out Vexenari, their fleet will lose cohesion. One ship for their entire command structure. Nix closed his eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of command. Godspeed, Captain. The Vengeance slammed into the side of the Valkyrie flagship with the force of a small sun. The antimatter explosion that followed was visible from 3-star systems away, a brief second sun that outshone the local star. When the light faded, both ships were gone, along with the 4,000 beings who had crewed them. But Vexenari's flagship was not among the dead. The Supreme Warlord had transferred his flag to a heavy cruiser moments before the impact, and his voice now carried a note of grudging respect. Brave, he admitted over the comm. Foolish, but brave. Your Captain Morrison died with honor. Captain Morrison died protecting innocent lives, Nix replied. That's what honor means to humans. Not glory, not conquest protection. The battle raged on, but the dynamic had shifted. The Valkyrie were no longer advancing. They were trying to maintain formation against an enemy that refused to fight by their rules. Human ships darted in and out of their lines like wolves harrying a herd, striking at weak points and vanishing before the enemy could respond. The human frigate Daring took advantage of a gap in the Valkyrie formation to unleash a full spread of antimatter torpedoes into the engine compartment of a battleship. The resulting explosion created a chain reaction that destroyed 3 more ships and damaged a dozen others. But the Valkyrie weren't finished. Their elite guard, the Crimson Talons, had been held in reserve, and now they entered the battle with the fury of born killers. These were not ordinary warships, they were mobile fortresses, each one crewed by veterans who had conquered worlds. The first Talon ship, Bloodreaper, caught the human cruiser Defiant in a perfect crossfire. The human ship's ablative armor, which had proven so effective against conventional weapons, was stripped away layer by layer under the concentrated fire. The Defiant fought back with everything it had, its magnetic accelerators punching holes through the Valkyrie ship's armor, but it was a losing battle. This is Captain Rex Varga, the Defiant's commander reported. We're taking critical damage. Main reactor is destabilizing. All hands, abandon ship, but there was nowhere to go. The escape pods would be sitting ducks in the middle of the battle. Negative, Captain, Nix replied. All ships converge on the Defiant's position. We leave no one behind. What followed was perhaps the most desperate 15 minutes in human military history. 7 human ships, already battered and running low on ammunition, threw themselves against the Crimson Talons in a suicidal rescue attempt. The destroyer, Resolute lost its entire forward section to a plasma lance, but kept firing with its remaining weapons. The frigate Audacious rammed a Valkyrie cruiser, its crew of 90 dying to save the 300 aboard the Defiant. In the end, they managed to extract most of the Defiant's crew, but the cost was horrific. When the rescue was complete, the human fleet had been reduced to less than 20 operational ships. Admiral, Sato said quietly, "We've lost over half our fleet. Casualty reports are still coming in, but we're looking at 12,000 dead." NYX stared at the tactical display, watching the red icons that represented human ships wink out one by one. 12,000 dead, 12,000 people who had followed him into battle, trusting in his judgment, believing in the cause. But the Valkyrie had lost more than 300 ships. Their mighty fleet was broken, scattered, demoralized, and in the center of it all, Supreme Warlord Vexenari's voice carried a note of something that might have been respect. "Admiral Nix," the alien commander said, "your species fights with a ferocity I have never seen. Perhaps it is time to discuss terms." "Terms?" Nix replied. "You came here to avenge your brother's death. You came here to prove that humans were weak. Have you learned differently?" "I'd have learned that humans are not weak," Vexenari admitted, "but neither are we. This battle has cost us both too much. Surely wisdom suggests that you should have thought of that before you started killing our children." Nix interrupted. "No terms, no negotiations, no quarter. This ends when one of us is dead." The tactical display showed the remaining ships of both fleets, battered and bleeding, but still fighting. The battle had reached its climax, but the final act was yet to come. The void around the dying star system had become a graveyard of twisted metal and frozen corpses. Debris from 400 ships drifted in the vacuum, creating a maze of wreckage that turned the battlefield into a three-dimensional nightmare. Emergency beacons flickered like dying stars, marking the graves of warriors from two species locked in mortal combat. Admiral Nix stood on the bridge of the Retribution, his flagship, now showing the scars of battle. Hull plating hung in twisted sheets, atmosphere leaked from a dozen breaches, and the deck was littered with debris from damaged systems. But the ship was still fighting, still moving, still defiant. "Status report," he ordered. "Lieutenant Commander." Sato consulted her flickering displays. 18 ships remaining, sir. The Valkyrie are down to 47 operational vessels, but they're consolidating around their command ships. They're preparing for a final assault. Through the viewport, Nix could see the enemy formation taking shape. The remaining Valkyrie ships were arranging themselves into a spearhead formation, their most powerful vessels at the tip. It was a classic last stand maneuver, concentrate all remaining firepower into a single devastating strike. "They're going to ram us," Nix realized. "Vexenari is going to sacrifice his entire remaining fleet in one final charge, sir." The communications officer called out. "Incoming transmission from Commander Torox." Nix's eyebrows rose. Torox had been aboard the Retribution since the battle began, coordinating the Marine contingents. "Patch her through, Admiral." Torox's voice was steady despite the chaos around them. "I've been monitoring the Valkyrie communications. They're not just planning a final assault, they're planning to broadcast it across the galaxy. They want to turn their defeat into a propaganda victory, show the universe that even in death, the hegemony is to be feared. And I have a better idea. Give me command of the remaining Marine assault shuttles. Let me show the galaxy what human honor really looks like." Nix understood immediately. "Torox, that's suicide. There's no way a handful of shuttles can penetrate their defenses. There's if you give me covering fire at exactly the right moment. Trust me, Admiral. I killed their warlord in single combat. Let me finish what I started." The deck shuddered as another Valkyrie salvo found its mark. Through the tactical display, Nix could see the enemy formation beginning to accelerate. In minutes, they would be in range for their final devastating charge. "Do it," he said. "All shuttles are yours. God go with you." 20 minutes later, 6 human assault shuttles launched from the remaining ships of the fleet. They were small, fast, and heavily armed, designed for boarding actions and close-quarters combat. Against the firepower of 47 warships, they should have been vaporized in seconds. But they weren't alone. The remaining human fleet suddenly surged forward, every ship firing everything they had left. It wasn't coordinated. It wasn't tactical. It was pure, desperate aggression designed to create a corridor of chaos through which the shuttles could pass. The destroyer, unyielding, took a direct hit from a Valkyrie plasma cannon and broke in half. but its death throes sent a spread of antimatter torpedoes into the enemy formation. The cruiser Stalwart rammed a Valkyrie heavy cruiser, both ships vanishing in a ball of fire that illuminated the entire battlefield. And through it all, 6 tiny shuttles raced toward the heart of the enemy fleet. Torox to all shuttles. The commander's voice crackled over the comm. Remember, we're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for every human who ever lived, who ever died, who ever dreamed of touching the stars. Show them what we're made of. The shuttles split apart as they entered the Valkyrie formation, each one heading for a different target. The Fury and Vengeance went after the command ships. The Honor and Valor targeted the heavy cruisers. The Courage and Defiance made for the carriers. The Valkyrie response was immediate and devastating. Point defense systems opened fire, filling space with a web of energy beams and projectiles. The shuttle Courage took a direct hit and simply ceased to exist. The Valor lost its starboard engine and began to tumble, its pilot fighting to maintain control. But the remaining shuttles pressed on, their marine crews preparing for boarding actions that would be decided by skill, courage, and the kind of desperate ferocity that had carried humanity from the caves to the stars. The shuttle Fury slammed into the side of Vexenaria's flagship, its cutting lasers already boring through the alien hull. Behind it, Vengeance hit the ship's engine section, its marines pouring through the breach with weapons blazing. This is Torox. The commander's voice carried across the battle. We're inside the flagship, beginning assault on the bridge. What followed was the most brutal close-quarters battle in recorded history. Human marines, armed with plasma rifles and powered armor, fought their way through corridors designed for beings twice their size. The Valkyrie defenders had every advantage: superior numbers, knowledge of their own ship's layout, and the desperation of cornered predators. But the humans had something else: the memory of every world that had burned, every child that had died, every family that had been torn apart by Valkyrie aggression. There in the engineering section, Vexenaria's voice crackled over the comm. All warriors, converge on. The transmission cut off in a burst of static. This is Torox. The commander's voice was breathless but triumphant. I'm on the bridge. Vexenaria is dead. All Valkyrie ships, this is your new reality. Your supreme warlord is dead. Your fleet is broken. Your invasion is over. The effect was immediate. Across the Valkyrie formation, ships began to slow, their formation breaking apart as commanders struggled to understand what had happened. Their undefeated leader, the heir to the Crimson Throne, had been killed by the same human who had slain his brother. Attention, warriors of the hegemony, Torox's voice carried across the battlefield. Your warlords mocked human honor. They called us weak, called us prey. But we are neither weak nor prey. We are the children of Earth, the heirs of 10,000 generations of survivors. We are the species that looked at the impossible and made it possible. On the tactical display, Admiral Nix watched as the remaining Valkyrie ships began to withdraw. There where the fight had been broken not by superior firepower, but by the sheer, indomitable spirit of beings who refused to be conquered. This is Commander Torox, broadcasting on all frequencies. Her voice continued. Let every species in the galaxy hear this message. Humanity will not be bullied. We will not be conquered. We will not be destroyed. Attack our worlds, and we will hunt you across the stars. Kill our children, and we will make you pay in blood. Mock our honor, and we will crush your legacy in the void. The battle is over. The Valkyrie Third Fleet, the most powerful military force in the hegemony, had been shattered by a human fleet 1/6 its size. But more than that, something fundamental had changed in the balance of power across the galaxy. Humanity was no longer prey. They were predators. 6 months after the Battle of Kepler's Edge, Commander Velia Torox stood in the observation deck of the orbital station New Harmony, watching the construction of humanity's newest warship. The Kessel was a monster too. Kilometers of hardened steel and human ingenuity, bristling with weapons systems that incorporated every lesson learned from the war with the Valkyrie. Admiring your handiwork, Admiral Nix joined her at the viewport, his uniform bearing the new insignia of Supreme Commander of Human Space Forces. Hardly. Torox replied, I'm wondering if we become the very thing we fought against. Below them, the shipyards hummed with activity. Dozens of vessels were under construction: destroyers, cruisers, battleships, and carrier platforms that would have been unimaginable before the war. Humanity had learned from their enemy's technology, adapted it, improved it, and made it there. The Valkyrie taught us an important lesson, Nix said. In this galaxy, you're either the predator or the prey. There's no middle ground. Is that what we tell ourselves? Torox asked. That we had no choice? Nix handed her a data pad. Intelligence reports from the Outer Rim. 3 more species have requested formal alliance treaties in the past month. The Zephyrians, the Crystalline Collective, and the Nomad Fleets. All of them cite human military prowess as their primary reason. Torox scrolled through the reports, her expression growing darker with each page. They're afraid of us. Good. Fear keeps the peace better than diplomacy ever could, and when they stop being afraid, when they decide that humanity is too dangerous to be allowed to exist. Nix turned to face her, his expression serious. Then we'll do what we've always done. We'll adapt. We'll survive. We'll win. The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Captain Yuki Sato, now wearing the stars of a rear admiral. Commander, Admiral, I thought you'd want to see this. It's a transmission from the Valkyrie hegemony. The holographic display activated, showing the image of a Valkyrie unlike any they'd seen before. This one was smaller, its carapace bearing intricate patterns that suggested high rank, but its posture was submissive, almost deferential. Honored humans, the creature began, its mechanical translator struggling with concepts that had no equivalent in its language. I am Kesvale, speaker for the Crimson Throne. I come before you not as a warrior, but as a supplicant seeking peace. Torox raised an eyebrow. That's a first. The hologram continued. The deaths of Warlord Kesval and Supreme Warlord Vexenari have educated our people. We understand now that humanity possesses virtues we do not fully comprehend. Your concept of honor is alien to us, but we have seen its power. We wish to learn. They want to surrender, Sato said quietly. No, Torox corrected. They want to understand us. There's a difference. The Valkyrie speaker's image flickered. As it continued, the hegemony offers formal cessation of all hostilities. We will withdraw from all disputed territories. We will pay reparations for the worlds we have damaged. In exchange, we ask only for the opportunity to study your ways, to learn what makes humanity so formidable. Nix laughed, but there was no humor in it. They want to learn how to beat us. Maybe, Torox said. Or maybe they want to learn how to be better than they are. The Valkyrie are predators, but they're not stupid. They realize that there's something about human nature they don't understand. Something that makes us more dangerous than our technology or our numbers. What do you mean? Torox gestured toward the viewport, where the construction crews continued their work. Human and alien workers labored side by side, building ships that would protect worlds they might never see, defending people they'd never meet. They understand conquest, she said. They understand dominance. They understand taking what they want by force. But they don't understand sacrifice. They don't understand fighting for something greater than yourself. They don't understand dying for strangers. She turned to face Nix and Sato. When Kesethel challenged me to single combat, he thought he was facing a warrior seeking glory. When I killed him, he realized he was facing something else entirely, someone who would rather die than let innocent people suffer. The Valkyrie have never encountered that before. So what do? Sato asked. We give them what they want. Torox said. We teach them. We show them that strength isn't about being the biggest predator in the forest. It's about being willing to stand between the predators and the innocent. Nix shook his head. You're talking about reforming an entire species. That's not how the universe works, isn't it? Torox challenged. 3 years ago, humans were scattered across a handful of colony worlds, running from every threat that came our way. Now we're the most feared military force in this sector of the galaxy. If we can change that much, maybe they can too. 6 months later, the first Valkyrie cadets arrived at the Terran Naval Academy. They were young by their species standards, their carapaces still soft, their mandibles unmarked by the ritual scars of warrior caste breeding. They came not as conquerors, but as students. The sight of alien children learning human military doctrine would have been unthinkable a year earlier. But as Commander Torox watched them struggle with concepts like duty and sacrifice, she began to believe that maybe, just maybe, the galaxy could be better than it was. The memorial wall in the Academy's main hall bore the names of 12,000 human service members who had died in the war. Below their names was a simple inscription: they died so others might live. This is the meaning of honor. The young Valkyrie cadets would walk past that wall every day for the next 4 years, learning to read the strange human symbols, struggling to understand the concept they represented. Some would fail, some would return to their old ways, unable to comprehend a philosophy so alien to their nature, but some would succeed. Some would graduate as officers in the Terran colonial navy, sworn to protect the innocent and defend the weak. They would serve alongside humans, fight alongside humans, and if necessary, die alongside humans for the ideals that had transformed their former enemies into their teachers. In the years to come, when other species threatened the peace, when new predators rose to challenge the innocent, the combined fleets of humanity and the reformed Velkari would stand together. They would show the galaxy that strength came not from conquest, but from the willingness to sacrifice for others. And in the quiet moments between crises, when the fleets patrolled the borders of civilized space, the story would be told and riddled. How an alien warlord mocked human honor, and how humanity responded by crushing not just his fleet, but his entire conception of what it meant to be strong. The galaxy had learned an important lesson: never mock human honor, because humans don't just get mad, they get better. They adapt, they evolve, and they make sure the mistake is never repeated. That was the true meaning of human honor, not just the willingness to fight for what's right, but the wisdom to transform enemies into allies and the strength to build a better future from the ashes of the past. Commander Velia Torox stood on the bridge of the New Harmony, now Admiral Torox, watching the combined human Velkari fleet patrol the edges of known space. In the distance, new threats were emerging, species that thought they could prey on the weak, conquerors who believed that might made right. They would learn differently. The galaxy had new guardians now, forged in the fires of war, but tempered by the wisdom of peace. And at their head stood the woman who had killed a warlord with her bare hands, and then taught his people the meaning of honor. The stars held many dangers, but they also held infinite possibilities. And as long as there were beings willing to stand against the darkness, to fight for the innocent, to sacrifice for the greater good, the light would never be extinguished. That was humanity's gift to the galaxy, not just the strength to win wars, but the wisdom to build a peace worth fighting for.